Hello, Internet friend. Today on Value Side, how a temporary presidential directive took us off the gold standard. I'm David Ravel. Well, it was midsummer 1971 when President Richard M. Nixon gathered 15 of the nation leaders together to discuss the twin problems of high inflation and slow economic growth, what came to be known as stagflation. Now, before the 1970s, most economists believed that these two conditions could not exist side by side. They viewed inflation as primarily demand-driven. Thus, high inflation was generally due to an overheating economy, the opposite of slow growth and lower prices. What no one could know at this meeting was that stagflation would become the chief enemy of economic growth throughout the coming decade. So Nixon called a meeting of the best and the brightest to devise a strategy to fight this new foe. Among those at the meeting were Secretary of Treasury John Connally, Federal Reserve Chairman Arthur Burns, and Undersecretary for International Monetary Affairs Paul Volcker, who would later become Chairman of the Federal Reserve. Now, the results of the meeting was twofold. The first was a Presidential Executive Order number 11615 aimed at curbing inflation, the gist of which was to institute wage and price controls. Most of the provisions of Executive Order 1615 have long since expired and are largely forgotten by history. Nonetheless, it's the second strategy that has proven to be so impactful. The country had begun to be a major importer, chiefly from Europe and Japan. This was a couple of years before Nixon would open China to American trade. And with the U.S. dollar convertible to gold, these foreign trading partners were draining our reserves of the monetary metal. According to the Federal Reserve history, Nixon then directed Treasury Secretary Connally to close the gold window, ending dollar-gold convertibility that had been in effect since the Bretton Woods Agreements of 1944. Now, presumably, Nixon had just leaned across the coffee table and in effect said, "John, take us off the gold standard," a casual, unwritten instruction that has been in effect for 54 years, much to the chagrin of hard money advocates and gold bugs everywhere. And just like that, Nixon converted the U.S. dollar from a gold back to a fiat currency. And later that evening, President Nixon informed the nation of his decision to remove the dollar from the gold standard, thereby protecting it from, quote, international currency speculators. Now, although this was meant to be a temporary measure, it is still in force today. Why? The answer is a simple one. No president or Congress has stepped forward to overrule Nixon's directive. Closing the gold window will remain in effect until our leaders in Washington decide otherwise. Now, today we have a president who is at least as audacious as Nixon. President Trump has initiated some of the most sweeping policy changes, and now export taxes are impacting the nation's trade and commerce like never before. Yet for those who believe that these new tariff policies may expire when Trump leaves office on January 20, 2029, it would be wise to examine the story of the formerly gold-backed dollar. An especially audacious U.S. president, through a presidential directive or executive order, can have an impact that lasts far beyond their terms in office. Although Richard Nixon proved in the end to be one of the least popular presidents of all time, we still live with his fiat dollar. And that's today's Value Side. For all of our articles, references, and podcasts, visit valueside.com. I'm David Ravel. ValueSide is independently written and researched. The views expressed are strictly my own.